Okay, we're recording now, so welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about the two different frameworks to understand competency for coaching supervisors. First, I'm going to go over the EMCC, European Mentoring Coaching Council, and then I will share the ICF one. Last month, we had Clara Veleiro from EMCC who came and did a presentation, so I'm going to briefly review what she shared with us. And then I am going to be sharing with you the model from ICF, and we are going to be discussing what do we see as similarities and differences. So let me start with the model from EMCC. This is what we covered last time, and let me be sure that you can see the document. Can you see the document? Okay.
Yes, I can see it.
Good. So this came up this year, so only a couple of months. I think only a couple of months ago, EMCC published this document, the Supervision Competency Framework. I share it with you in the chat box so you can look at it. There is an introduction. And it's interesting that in the introduction talks about how this framework is based on the understanding the three functions of supervision: the qualitative, developmental, and resourcing, and also the 7-9 model from Peter Hawkins that in some way reflected in this framework. So we see that the first competency is managing the supervision contract and process. This is about being clear that there is an exploration of what is supervision. Yeah.
Can you enlarge the document? It's not readable. Thank you very much.
Is it better now?
I think one more enlarge can help. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Great. Good. So the idea here is that the competency one is about managing the supervision contract and process. It's about establishing and maintaining the contract. It's not something that you do at the beginning, but you keep that in mind throughout the process and include all of the relevant stakeholders in the process. So the idea here is that in this contracting, what we think is very important in the work of the supervisor is setting up the foundation for the relationship. So we talk about, it includes engaging all of the stakeholders, talking about logistics, clarifying philosophy, everything that is related to contracting. Competence number 2, we talk about the three functions of supervision, developmental, resourcing, and the emotional part, that getting emotional support. So facilitating development is about learning. And there is one competency particularly about the developmental function that is supporting the supervisee to improve the standards so they can be more effective through reflection, and also employing a range model theory framework to support the supervisee in their learning. So this is the developmental function of supervision, and to what extent the supervisor shares knowledge, skills, behaviors that are relevant. And the key element here is encouraging critical thinking and curiosity. We don't want to go one by one of the elements. We want to just look in general what are the key elements. So competence 3 is about providing support. This is a supporting function, the emotional function, where the supervisee may feel supported, where we can talk about emotions, we can find ways to prevent burnout. So this is an opportunity to reflect on the experiences and prioritize the well-being of the coach. Also mentor or supervisors, we also need supervision. So we will also be looking into that in our own supervision. So here the supervisor need to co-create a safe space so the supervisee may be vulnerable and bring their issues. And here is a key element of dealing with that support, because many times there is shame. It's very common in individual and in group supervision, even more, feeling shame for blind spots or for things that we have done that when we were not effective. So I think here it's important to create that supportive environment, that psychological safety, so the supervisee open up and be comfortable sharing these places where maybe feeling very maybe not confident or not effective. And competency number 4 is about the norming function. We're talking about developmental, supportive, and norming. And norming is about being sure that the supervisee follow professional standards, they follow the code of ethics. Doesn't matter if it's EMCC, ICF, or the code of ethics of the organization that they belong to, if they belong to an association, professional association. So that's related to behaviors related to professional practice as well as ethical practice. And then now we are moving to this framework looking at the 7A model where we want to develop this self-awareness. What is when we call the I number 4, how though the coach see him or herself, look at the mirror and use this space to have higher level of awareness about how we're showing up as coaches working with our clients. So it's about acknowledging limitations. It's also for the supervisor looking at itself and how they're working, not only how the coach is working with I number 4, but I number 6. The supervisor is looking at him or herself and see what's happening in the work that they are doing, working with their own supervisor, understanding the supervisor's weak points or area for development, willing to work with ambiguity, complexity. But the key issue here is for the supervisor, keep working in his own or her own awareness about how they're showing up as supervisors working with their supervisees. Competency 6 is about relationship awareness. It's what we call, will be I number 5, is how the supervisor is showing up in the relationship in the here and now with the supervisee. It's paying attention to biases, judgments that are likely to emerge in co-creating the relationship. So the idea is that the supervision should be a non-judgmental space, but when there is judgment, we need to be aware of what they are and bring into their own supervision. So it's about being aware from ourselves, what's happening to us, but also in the relationship with our supervisor, what's happening to us. Also, being able to adapt to different styles based on the unique needs of the supervisor, and is being able to look at some challenges that may happen in the relationship, sometimes maybe issues of power. So being aware of all of the dynamic between the supervisor and supervisee. Competency number 7 is about systemic awareness. It's what will be I number 7 in the 7A model, looking about all of the systems and dynamics related to the different ecosystems that they are part of. Looking at the context, how whatever is around them is influencing them, and paying attention to other systems that may be at play and the supervisor may not be paying attention to. So this is important that in supervision, the supervisor pay attention to all of the different systems in which he or she is operating. And finally, competency number 8 is about group supervision, being aware about different dynamics that happen when you work with a group. It's understanding the dynamics, or understand the group dynamics, areas and group stage development, and adapting based on where the group is at, bringing a safe space, bringing us being sure that there is psychological safety, that all voices are welcome, managing conflict if there is any, and being sure that everybody gets value from the experience, not only the person bringing the case. So these are the 8 competencies from the EMCC model. There was a revision lately, and they include in the revision this year AI, ethical issues related to artificial intelligence and technology, but they were not major changes. They were minor changes, paying attention to new trends and tendencies. Any questions before we move to the ICF framework? Questions or comments? So in that case, let's move
Damian,
on to, yes.
Damian, I didn't hear the last part. You were talking about the AI, and was that on their ethical code of ethics, or how did that play into the competency model? I didn't hear the whole communication that you gave.
Yes, so basically in the EMCC revised the competencies this year.
All
And
right.
they look, should we keep the same? Should we change them? What should we do? And they decided to keep them. So they were not changing what the competencies are, but they add some items. And some of the items are related to including technology and AI in the work of the coach and how the supervisor supports coaches working with AI and all of the ethical and other kind of challenges that happen. So, for example, they were talking about the case that the coach brings to supervision that refer AI and some technology to deal with the situation.
Right.
And then the coach said, okay, thank you very much. That was very helpful. Everything that I needed, I got it from AI. I don't need you anymore. So
Right.
how do you deal with that kind of conversation in supervision? And so there are some items in the new code and in the new code of ethics and in the competency framework. And you can see that if you look in the document I sent you, you will see some of that there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And also Clara Veledo last month did a presentation on that. So I will be sharing, I will probably send the link of the two presentations to all of the Asian Supervisor Network members so they can see the two sessions. And you can reinforce the session from Clara. Okay. And finally, let me talk about the ICF framework. That is a framework that came up last year. And I want you to pay attention to see what do you see as similarities and differences. So if we look at that, I'm going to share again the document. And I am going to also do what I did before to make it bigger. Can you see it? Can you see it well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the ICF coaching supervision competency model. I don't know, Ellen, you arrived a couple of minutes late. Did you get the chance to see the two documents that I sent before? Okay,
Yes, I just downloaded it, so I'm looking at it.
great. So great. So there is at the beginning a summary, an introduction, like in the other document. There is an overview. And then the competencies there are also 8 competencies. The competency number A start with foundation, provide ethical guidance. So this, as you can see, this is similar to the norming competency in the EMCC. So both of them have one competency related to providing ethical guidance. So this is a consistent competency, similar to the other framework. Number 2 is engage in ongoing reflection and self-care. So here is about again what we call it when we're talking coaching, is the coaching mindset. In supervision, we can call it the supervision mindset, where the supervisor is reflecting on his or her work, is working on the well-being, his or her well-being. So the idea is that here the supervisor is engaging in ongoing learning, development of self-care as a coaching supervisor, and maintaining ongoing reflective practice, like its own having our own supervision. So I think these two competencies are similar to the coaching competencies, but for supervisors, in the same model that ICF that they have, following ethical standards and developing a coaching mindset. So these two competencies as the foundation of coaching that are also the foundation for supervision. And then we go to the competencies regarding process. So A is about foundation, because A is foundation competencies. B is about process. And here you have establishes and update contracts. As you can see, this was another competency, also the EMCC framework is number 1 instead of number 3. But again, it's about contracting and it's about agreement. It's in a similar order as you see the coaching competencies for ICF. Number 4 is managing the supervision process. So this is more holistic. This is more about understanding adjustment that need to be happen during the process. Is about the logistics. It's about requesting feedback on ongoing basis, making improvement in the process. So this is in some way different and unique. I think there is not one competency like that for EMCC or in the coaching framework. And then numbers in the C area is about client learning and reflection. Create a supportive environment. This is similar to the supportive function, where the supervisee may feel supported in the work that he or she is doing. Number 7, facilitate. So 5 is creating a supportive environment. Number 6 is facilitate client reflection. So this is just one competency about reflection that can be similar to the developmental function in the EMCC model, where you have a space for reflection and learning. And reflection is about self, work, systems, and context. And then number 7 is about client development. So it's about supporting development for the client. And finally, the last one, group supervision, is similar to group supervision. Both of them have 8 as managing the group supervision process. So there are a lot of nuances, but we are not going to go there. I just want to give you like a big perspective of what they are and see what do you see as some similarities and differences. What came up for you?
Just one quick question, Damian.
Yes.
You share the ICF document in the chat box, but not the EMCC one.
Yeah, I share both of them.
Oh,
Check to see. The first is the EMCC, and the second one is the ICF.
okay. Thank you. Pardon me. Yeah.
Good. So maybe later you want to read both of them and see what call your attention as similarities and differences. As you can see, they are not very different. I think at the end of the day, they are very similar. Maybe they have different names, different order, but I believe that you have some consistent messages about, okay, supervisors need to be effective at following ethical standards. They need to be effective at contracting. They need to be effective at creating a reflective space. They need to be effective at being supportive and creating a supportive environment. They need to be effective at working with groups and group dynamics and whatever is required for supervision. So in general, I think the two frameworks are very similar, even though they are not the same.
So, Damian, are there
Damian's-
some... Sorry.
Jaya?
Yeah, I was just sorry. I think I spoke over someone. I was curious to understand what is only one key difference between these two. It looks very similar. I mean, just the word verbiage is different, maybe, but fundamentally looking similar. Is there any one thing which is not there in one and there in the other one?
Well, which is interesting because if you look as a whole and you look at everything, all of the items from one and the items of the other one, most of the things are there. And then they may have a different name or they may be in a different order. So, for example, one difference we can say, like in general, the bigger picture, we see that the ICF has one specific competency around the process.
Mhm.
But EMCC also talks about the process inside the contracting, because it's contracting is not just the contract, but it's the ongoing process of contracting and adjusting. And so what is in two different competencies for ICF is in one competency for EMCC.
Hmm.
And then you have one that is from ICF that is a reflective space, a competency about creating a reflective space. But then you have in EMCC, the reflective space continue in different places. There may not be just one competency about creating a reflective space by using the reflective space in items in a lot of the different other competencies. So at the end of the day, I don't think there are any main differences. Historically, what was different between EMCC and ICF was, for example, all of the work on self-awareness and self-work was less preeminent, less visible at the ICF. So EMCC had embraced self-awareness and self-development earlier. So, for example, you have in the supervision framework or even in the coaching framework from EMCC, this self-reflection. And for ICF, they just came out with developing a coaching mindset or cultivating a coaching mindset in the last revision only 3-4 years ago. But it catch up was behind around that piece.
I ran it through Copilot. I asked Copilot, like, what's the difference between EMCC, Coach Supervision Competencies, and ICF? And it didn't say, it broke it down, but it didn't actually highlight the differences. It just highlighted notable features and the features around approach. EMCC is capability-based versus competency-based. The focus is for EMCC, developmental, systemic, relationship; for ICF, ethical, reflective, structured. You would know more about this because, of course, we need the human in the loop to verify what it's spitting out. But it's hard to say, like you said, what the difference is.
So based on what you got there, I will do that. I didn't realize to do that, but I am going to do it right now. I'm going to see what came out with ChatGPT. But if you look one more time to what you got, it doesn't seem that it was clear, correct?
No. It's just saying the core competencies, notable features, notable. It covers all of it. Ethical, the assessment style. It didn't actually highlight I'm wondering what's that question to ask, right? To really determine what is integrated in one and not present in the other. They pretty much cover the same issues. Ethics, systemic thinking, etc.
So I got a really interesting document that I did it in less than a minute. Let me share with you. So I'm going to copy and paste this in the.
For me, it just looked like a different lens reading first, and also it might also be linked to cultural approach, because maybe ICF at the beginning took a little bit of time before coming to supervision, while EMCC was already earlier in supervision, years ago.
My reaction, Damian, I've been looking at asking that question, what's really the difference for some time now? And I could never see any great difference, but the structure of it is different, and now when I look at the two, certainly the ICF seems to start with the competency model. So they had something in mind that they said, now let's apply this to supervision. And when I look at the EMCC, it's, as you said, they sort of preference the 3 functions and then maybe, Hawkins' the 7-eyed model thing. So behind the work that they were doing, the output seems they're covering the same basis, but there's some structural differences.
Yeah. So that's subtle. I personally think at the end of the day, my personal experience is that they are not main difference. But look at this. Let's see what they came up with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it for people who are listening to the recording, okay? So, number 1, purpose and orientation. ICF defines specific measurable competencies for assessment and credentialing. Okay, so the language is very measurable focused compared to EMCC that offers more a reflective developmental framework for growth, dialogue, and adaptability. Philosophical focus, ICF, grounded in ethical practice, structured and reflective learning. EMCC emphasizes systemic awareness, reflexivity, and co-creative evolving practice. But it's interesting, I would say that ICF does that too. And scope and modernization, ICF, focused on individual supervision, does not address technology. EMCC expand to team group supervision, diversity, and ethical integration of AI and technology. Okay, so that's interesting that the one from AI just was revised and included technology, and the one from ICF, maybe because they started working that a couple of years ago, they didn't get there. I like what Jaya said. Same wine in different bottles. I love that, Jaya. Thank you for sharing that. Made me laugh. Okay, well, Elena here added something. So, do you want to, Elena, do you want to read some of these?
Sure. I mean, I asked what's missing from each when comparing. That was a question that I asked, and so what it came out with is what might be missing or less emphasized in the ICF framework. And so you can see it says ICF includes systemic thinking, but EMCC places a stronger emphasis on understanding the broader organizational, cultural, societal systems, which is basically the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's still systemic thinking. So here's us checking, right? The human in the loop here. Capability versus competency, that ICF focuses on observable behaviors and structured competencies, which may miss the nuanced developmental emergent aspects of supervision that EMCC captures through its capability-based models. I'm not quite sure what that means. And then there's the digital and AI integration. EMCC explicitly addresses digital supervision contexts, including AI and remote work. ICF does not highlight this. And then group supervision, EMCC includes group supervision as a core competency, and ICF model is more individual focused with less guidance on group dynamics. I haven't read the competencies, so I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what it's stating here. And then supervisors' personal development, EMCC emphasizes the ongoing development and reflective capacity of the supervisor. ICF includes this, but it's more embedded than explicitly stated.
You know what? I have a 15-minute video that was done for one of the researchers from ICF who helped to come up with this model. He couldn't come to the session that I was doing for the Global Supervision Network, so he recorded a session. So it's 15 minutes, and he explained the ICF model. Would you like to watch this in the last 15 minutes? Would you like to watch him?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish with that? Were you there, Janalvir? Share this.
No.
Okay, so I think that I think that you would like this. So let me share the presentation. It's 15 minutes, and then we'll finish with that. Janalvir, anything you want to say before we do that?
No, meanwhile, I was saying I have a same observation for the core competencies as well. If you look at EMCC and ICF competencies, they're not very different. Just the language and the way they are placed is a little different, but actually covering the similar stuff. So I would, and then now that we're going through this conversation, it seems like similar stuff.
The same thing about team coaching. I was analyzing team coaching competencies, and again, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, so let's get to see this so we can finish on time.
Assistant Director of Academic Research at the International Coaching Federation. Hello, everyone. I am Thomas Ketch. I am the Assistant Director of Academic Research at the International Coaching Federation. And today I'm going to present the ICF Coaching Supervision Competencies. These were competencies that were developed in 2023 and 2024, and they were released in September of 2024. I'm really happy to be here and glad to present on this. So I'm going to go ahead and start the PowerPoint here. Okay, as I mentioned, I'm Thomas Ketch. I just want to mention some of my colleagues that were also involved with this process. Joel DiGirolamo, he's the Vice President of Research and Data Science. Carrie Abner, the Vice President of ICF Credentials and Standards. And Dr. Allie Lake, who is the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the ICF Coaching Education. We also worked with a contractor on this project, Dr. Matt Barney. He is an industrial organizational psychologist, and he helped us with the research portion of the project, which is called a job analysis, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Here's just an overview of my talk. I'm just going to talk a little bit about job analyses, as I had mentioned. Then I'll talk about the specific job analysis process for developing the coaching supervision competencies. I'll talk about the ICF coaching supervision competencies themselves, what's in the model, etc. And then I'll do a comparison of the ICF supervision competencies with the 3 functions of supervision that were kind of well-known functions and how those relate to the competencies. And then I'll spend a little bit of time talking about the differences and similarities between coaching supervision and ICF mentor coaching, which is something that ICF is very specific to ICF mentor coaching is. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So first I want to talk about what a job analysis is. Basically, a job analysis is a research method, and it's a systematic and comprehensive process to identify the tasks, knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics required to effectively perform a specific job. So I'm going to use the example of a physician, so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So if we're looking at the job of a physician, so some of the tasks that a physician might perform are examining patients, ordering diagnostic tests, prescribing medication, for example. Some of the knowledge that might be required to be a physician might be knowledge of human anatomy or biology. Some of the skills and abilities might be critical thinking, reading comprehension, problem solving. And the other characteristics might be personality characteristics such as conscientiousness, needing to have an attention to detail and kind of a hard work ethic to become a doctor, for example. So that's just a quick example of what these different things might mean: tasks, knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics. So here are the research methods that we used to create the ICF coaching supervision competencies. So we started with a literature review of the academic research. From that, we used that literature to develop a draft definition of supervision, which evolved over time, and I'll share the final definition with you later on. There were 20 interviews that we performed with coaching supervisors. And from the literature review and those 20 interviews, we created a list of tasks, knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics to create an online survey, which we sent out to coaching supervisors around the world. There were 341 coaching supervisors who responded to that survey. So if you were one of those, we thank you very much for your input. It was very valuable for us to develop the competencies. Once we got that data back, we analyzed it, and then we presented the data to a group of subject matter experts. That's what the SME stands for there on the slide. Subject matter experts. Basically, in this case, it's coaching supervisors who are the subject matter experts on coaching supervision. So we invited 29 coaching supervisors to 6 workshops. Those were 3-hour workshops. And we spent a lot of time diving into the data and then discussing, based on the tasks, knowledge, skills, and abilities, what are some of the competencies that coaching supervisors need to know to do their job effectively. So from that work, we created a draft version of the competency model. Then we went through kind of a review process with some new SMEs, some older SMEs that we used in the workshop, 29 in total of those coaching supervisors who reviewed the model, provided feedback, and then from that feedback, we created the final competency model, which I'll show you here momentarily. So, like I said, I'm going to show you, here's the updated definition of coaching supervision that came out of the research. So coaching supervision is a dynamic and reflective process of collaboration, guidance, and support through which coaches develop their personal, professional, and ethical capacity and maturity. Here's a big picture overview of the ICF supervision competencies. So you see there are 4 domains: foundation, process structure, client learning and reflection, and group supervision. And within those 4 domains, there are 8 competencies. And for each of those 8 competencies, there are numerous sub-competencies. I won't go into that much detail in this presentation because of time constraints, but that's just a big picture overview. So I'm going to go by each domain, and kind of go through what's in the model. So first we see the first domain, which is foundation. And in this domain, there are 2 competencies: provide ethical guidance and engages in ongoing reflection and self-care. So this provides ethical guidance competency is kind of a mixed focus. It has some things about the ethics of the supervisor and some things about the ethics of the supervision client. So this is the coach being supervised, and I'll use that term supervision client to refer to the coach that's being supervised throughout the presentation. So first we'll talk about the supervisor's ethics. So abiding by ethical codes. This is a supervisor. The supervisor staying in their role as a supervisor and having in presenting clarity around that role. They're not going into a therapist role or a coach role or another role. They're basically staying in that supervisor role. And then if there are any other additional resources that the client needs outside of supervision, that are outside the scope of supervision, then the supervisor would recommend those additional resources. This might be legal counsel from, a lawyer, or it might be therapy or some other helping modality. So the supervisor would recommend those resources as needed to the supervision client. The last 2 here are about the client's ethics. So in the supervision, the supervisor is going to emphasize that the client understand the legal and ethical considerations that they need to understand based on the nature of their work. So this might be laws, this might be ethics of professional bodies, and so forth. And then the last one there is working on any client ethical dilemmas that might arise in their coaching practice. We'll move to the second competence here, engages in ongoing reflection and self-care. This is the supervisor. We're talking about the supervisor's self-care. We're talking about the supervisor's ongoing and reflection. So this ongoing reflection. So this is really about the ongoing learning and development of the supervisor, make sure they are taking care of themselves, making sure that they are participating in some kind of ongoing reflective practice, on their self, on their work, on the systems and contexts within which they're working as a supervisor, increasing their self-awareness, any kind of limitations they might have, biases, etc., and then reaching out for additional guidance if needed. So a lot of supervisors have supervisors of their own that supervise their supervision work. So things like that might fit into this category as well. The second domain is process structure. This is really creating a structure for the supervision process. So the first one here is establish and updates contracts. This is really about the agreement between the supervisor, the supervision client, and any other stakeholders that might need to be involved. Talking about the guidelines and parameters of the process, alignment and approach between supervisor and supervision client, the relationship boundaries, the limits of confidentiality, how ethical dilemmas are handled, the purpose and focus of the supervision, and creating any kind of updates, revisions as needed as the process unfolds. Then we have manages the supervision process. So this is about the supervisor managing the process, the logistics, the focus of the process, adjusting the process to meet the needs of the client, asking for feedback from the client if any adjustments need to be made, and then of course making those adjustments as needed. The third domain is client learning and reflection. This is kind of where the magic happens within the coaching supervision. So you have the first one there is creates a supportive environment. This is the first competency under this domain. And this is really about the supervisor creating a supportive and inclusive environment for the coaching supervision client to reflect, share. It's really creating that container for the client so that they can have a successful process. This is managing any relational dynamics that come up between the supervisor and the supervision client, encouraging client self-care, supporting client resourcefulness, a learning mindset, helping them develop their capacity, honoring the supervision client's experience, and offering guidance to the client as needed. The next one is facilitates client reflection. So this is about the reflective practice piece of supervision. So this is where the supervisor helps facilitate the supervision client's reflection on their work to create personal and professional development. So encourages them to do reflective practice inside the supervision session, outside the supervision session, exploring things like client identity, their perspectives, their biases, any cultural and diversity related issues that are coming up in their practice, and any kind of systemic reflection that needs to happen. I know many of you are systemic based supervisors, so the seven-eyed model might fit under that, kind of the systemic reflection of all the different systems and contexts at play. Lastly, in this domain, we have guides client development. So this is about guiding the supervision client's development, their capacity for their work, their way of being, exploring different issues that arise in their practice from a developmental lens, enhancing the quality of the coaching supervision client's work, exploring the identity of the supervision client and how that relates to their coaching style and vice versa. Helping the supervision client to integrate the learning that happens within the coaching supervision session, and then having the client evaluate their progress over time is also a part of this competency. Lastly, we have group supervision. This is the final domain. EMCC manages group supervision. This is about just creating a reflective, collaborative, and inclusive group experience. This is, kind of managing different group dynamics. It's about recognizing the different identities and values, worldviews, the contextual and systemic places that people are coming from, and kind of just acknowledging all of that is being brought into the group supervision session with each individual that comes. And then encouraging participation from all group members. So this is just good practice for any kind of group process, really. And this is so that's the final competency. I want to touch on very briefly, I'm running out of time here, so really briefly, I just want to show how the three functions of supervision, developmental, resourcing, and qualitative, they are included in the ICF supervision competencies. They're just not called out explicitly. So the developmental one, that relates to competency 7, guides client development. The resourcing function relates most closely with the creating a supportive environment. And the qualitative function relates most closely with provides ethical guidance and guides client development. And you'll also see that I included facilitates client reflection across all three of those as well. And that's another important piece, of course, that cuts across all three of those functions. Lastly, I just want to do a comparison between mentor coaching and supervision. So just broad strokes, like I said, I'm running out of time. So mentor coaching is really about developing the skills of the coach within the context of the ICF core competency. So it's really about making sure that they are competent in demonstrating the competencies. And then supervision is much more broad than that. It's the development of the self, the capacity of the coach to do the work, reflection on self, so that reflective practice, reflection on self, work, and systems. And there's also a supportive component with supervision as well. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for allowing me.
Okay, we are at the top of the hour, so I think it's a good moment to wrap up. But I think that what he shared was consistent to what I went through. But it's good to see visually with a PowerPoint. I think it helps to look at, and I really like the differences at the end when we talk about the three functions and where they were. So I think that's helpful. Before we go, any questions or comments? I will share with you the record.
Can I make one last comment, Damian?
Yeah.
As I was watching that, what really struck me was that the things are the same. I think they cover the same territory, but the underlying approach somehow is different. I felt a more quantitative, positivistic approach from the ICF, and I sense a more qualitative, a different methodological approach from them. So it gets back to they come to the same place, but they got there different ways. And sometimes the approach you has brings a different kind of a meaning to what you find.
So, yeah, that's a good point. I think it's a good point, and I think that if you see, we were talking about coaching before. I don't think that EMCC have a competency framework with a specific behavior where they look as the mentor coaching that ICF provides. Is everything developed by ICF is more measurable.
Yeah.
And I think the EMCC framework is a little bit less behavioral focused, as you are saying, and more reflective learning, self-awareness, etc. So, to continue the conversation, we are not finishing now. I wonder if we may bring two people because these are new models and new reflections, and I think that this is going to be more and more conversation on these topics in the future. But it's good to start thinking about this. Now, next month, I have a confirmation from Reggie, who is going to he did a session on silence for the America Coaching Supervision Network, and it went really well. And he's going to come to this space so he can share that with us next month. And then in December, we will not have a session because of the holidays. So, looking forward to see you in December, and great seeing everyone. Let's be in communication, okay?
Okay.
See you soon.
Thank you, Damian. This is helpful.
Have a good day, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.